super cool and was like happy for us, and I was like, this is beautiful. It gave me hope.
Beautiful. What was I going to say? Oh, do you think that there'll be a time, where you take it more seriously? Like, do you expect to maybe find your husband through a dating site?
Yeah.
Are you open to that?
Yeah, I feel like recently I am taking it more seriously. There was a point where I felt like I was swiping, like, sure, he'd be fun to talk to. Sure, he'd be cool. And then I was like telling my mom, like, Mom, most of them try to kiss me at the end of the day. She's like, honey, of course they would. And so now I'm like, would I kiss him? Would I kiss him? and then more recently I've had talks with friends about, when you say no to something, you're really giving more space and room to say yes to other things. And that was a really big lesson for me because I feel like I'm very equal opportunity in so many things. I love to learn about different things, and so I just want to be spontaneous and not limit myself to anything. And recently I'm like, no, I think I'll date with more intention.
Right.
And say no to people who are cute and seem fun, but I don't feel like we would really be long term. Like we could be fun for, because I think it's okay to have that too. Have someone you hang out with and go on dates with and like practice those things that you expect to have eventually, as long as it's respectful and it's mutual. But now more recently I'm like, yeah, I want to find a husband. I mean, and I told you I want to have more kids, so that kind of puts a little more pressure.
Do you think that you're on the right sites for that? The right apps?
Sites. Yeah, so I found a new app recently that is like a Tinder but from people from my church. And then, so to me, I'm like, okay, I'm going to show God that I'm really looking for someone with like same values and everything. But I'm still open to other people. Just because someone's labeled one religion or no religion or whatever doesn't mean that they're not a good person or want to grow together in a lot of same things. So I'm still open to certain things, but for instance, yesterday or a couple of days ago on Bumble, I saw that there's a filter to say like, oh, I only want to find people who never smoke. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that was an option. Like, yes, let's do that, So yeah, I feel like I'm having more intention. Recently, I feel like I have a lot of projects with my career aspirations that are taking me away from dating. Honestly, there hasn't been much of opportunity to like date anyway recently. But I will say, I wanted to mention that I went on this reality dating show back in October. And to me, that was like also showing God in the universe that I'm willing to sacrifice and make certain things happen to find somebody. Now, this is a show where a lot of people, it's called Enamorándonos USA. It's on Univision. It's out of Miami. Obviously, there's like a hiatus right now, but it became a huge show really quickly. And it's pretty much like the dating show back in the day, I think, like the 70s maybe, where like, you're talking to someone through a wall, you don't see them, you ask them questions, and then it opens. So it's not like The Bachelor where you're like staying at a house and 24/7. It's like 1 hour live show on a stage.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, that sounds fun. And I already work in front of the camera, so it's like a fun environment. It's fun to meet people who are in that environment. But it's a show where a lot of people get criticized for going there just to get famous. Now, I don't care if someone says that about me, but that wasn't my intention. And I actually found someone there who really I was attracted to. I'm like, wow, this guy seems cool and different than the other guys. And so I had been in talks with the casting people, and I texted them like, this guy, I want to go for him. So it's like they have like a cast of people, and then people go for them, and they'll say yes or no to a date, and then they'll say yes or no if they want to keep dating. So I went with him, and this was a big deal for me also because I've had long hair all my life, and this was right before I buzzed my head out of nowhere because I wanted something different. And so for me to present myself to a man in front of cameras, not feeling the most beautiful or the typical beautiful that I feel was a huge, and a single mom, like there were so many things that would keep people from going. And so it was a big, thing for myself and my self-esteem and to present myself that way. And he was so cute because as soon as the door opened, he hugged me and then he like rubbed my head, like caressed it, like as if to say like, I accept you. It was so cute. And so we just vibed really well, had fun. We went on a fun date that was on the show. And then he was in New York, so at the end he's like, she has a beautiful soul, she's wonderful, but we're just on the other side of the country, and kind of just left off as friends. But so anyway, so yeah, I feel like I am kind of making efforts and staying open, and I think also while I work on my aspirations, and something naturally will happen too.
I just want to switch gears a little bit because this is a little bit more personal, but you said that you're big in the church, and I remember when I had Keone and I became a single mom, I was also very big in my church, and I I felt like, and I'm just curious if you felt similarly, but I
Yeah.
felt like it would be hard for me to find, you know, a husband having this baby out of wedlock, being a single mom. Do you feel any of those pressures while dating, or?
Yeah, so I definitely was kind of expecting maybe some criticism at the beginning. Fortunately, I was so blessed that I just felt support from my friends in the church and no judgment. You know, if there was, I didn't hear about it. Because I feel like ultimately, and a lot of friends told me, you know, we know your soul, like this doesn't change how I view you or how I respect you. And anyway, so I felt a lot of support. I didn't think about dating for a long time because it's a lot to go through a pregnancy alone and to feel like rejected and to doubt yourself and then obviously a baby takes up a lot of energy and he wouldn't sleep for like the first year. So it was a lot. But when I was finally ready and I felt like I kind of got my groove back, I started going Latin dancing, and that's where I met you know, guys that I would go out with. And so yeah, now trying to find someone like in the church, I do kind of anticipate that conversation that they might, you know, I don't know, judge me or have doubts about my character for having had a baby out of wedlock. But obviously, you know, depending on how they react to that, I'll be able to know if that's someone I even want to entertain. You know,
right. I mean, when you think about the big
life.
picture, it's like obviously you're not going to deal with anybody who wouldn't accept it.
Right.
But just as women, I know how we can be and just have that
Right.
fear and like, oh, am I going to be able to find? I mean, I remember even my mom looking back, telling me her friends would say, oh, she's never going to find a husband. She's had this baby, and you know, these are thoughts that you have, you know. But obviously, that's not true. Especially a lot of people. I feel like everyone has kids and
right, or
know.
people have gone through other things
Right.
where, you know, they kind of have been embarrassed about or were against their typical values that they've moved on, that they've grown from. I feel like, you know, it's hard to see this as like a mistake because something so beautiful from God came from it, and there's things that we don't understand in this life or about how they happen. But I know that I've remained faithful as much as I could throughout my life, and I am in constant communication with God, so I don't really have any fears or doubts about, you know, what kind of man he's going to place in front of me. Fortunately, my experience has been positive. Again, going back to intention, I feel like I'm a positive person. I try to live a positive life, and so I'm going to attract positivity as well. But yeah, I expect to maybe, if I was to date someone in the church, to ask me about that, and I won't, you know, I'll handle it without embarrassment or without any hesitation, and it's something that I've grown, that I've become a better person for, you know. So I would hope that whatever man I'm in front of is going to appreciate the person I am and what it took to get me to that point.
Absolutely, that's great.
Okay, so I want to definitely, first of all, say thank you for coming, mainly because there were a few other people who wanted to interview who were single, and for whatever reason, we weren't able to get them to come in, and so that shows your confidence. Obviously, you've talked about your confidence, so thank you for that.
Thank you. It's been
Right.
a pleasure. You guys are awesome.
Because, I mean, we know that it's a touchy subject, but it's
Right.
one that so many can relate to. One that, you know, it's not just you going through it, obviously. So we're hoping that, you know, those of you who are listening, single mothers, you guys just are confident that, you know, if you're wanting to just have fun, that's fine. Or if you're wanting to find your husband like I did, that's also fine. But you shouldn't be embarrassed, and you shouldn't feel like something's wrong with you, or, you know, if you're dating and it's not going the way you want. It's just, you know, it's just not your time yet.
Right.
So hopefully that's what, you know, our listeners got with today. And just thank you for being open as always, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. If I may do a quick
appreciate it.
reminder to your listeners, in anything in life, you choose your intention. So don't feel like it's up to the other person. You can have the same impact and the same confidence to take a situation to be what you want it. And in dating, I feel like that's a huge thing that women especially need to remember.
Absolutely. I love that.
All right, well, thank you guys for listening. You guys have a great one.
We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Perfect.
Thank you guys. That was
Good
awesome.
job.
That was fun.
But yeah, I
wish
mean,
it
my
was
friends who were.
so we could go get something to eat. I don't know. Are you hungry? No.
A little
No?
bit.
Yeah.
I'm a
Okay.
little bit too.
Where?
And we could take
Are-
advantage
are-
of the
Maybe
queue.
eat outside somewhere. Maybe there's something
Okay.
on. But
Swami's might be.
what's Swami?
It's down the street off of Grand. they have like salads and breakfast stuff and burgers and burrito. I mean tacos.
Because we're both doing keto, we need a burger.
Yeah, they definitely keto friendly for sure.
Okay.
We had some friends. I think the problem with reason why they didn't want to come is because they're just single. So they're like in their 30s. One was in their 40s, no kids. And so I think that was like the embarrassment factor. And I'm like, but people relate to that. I'm like, we try to tell them like, there's other people, and they're all they're all professional women. So I'm like, that's also probably part of it because you guys are, working, trying to grow in your career. So we wanted to talk about that, but they were all like.
And my sister, everyone, I mean, all my friends, I used to hate it. Your sister's so fine. So it's not like she's not living. But of course, at 44, as like you were saying, as time you go, you get set in your ways. And it's like then you just become comfortable being single. And it's like, how can you bring someone else into
and they're like almost embarrassed about it. I'm like, even my two friends, I'm like, but it's not like, and it's easy for me to say because here I am, married and I have all these kids. But it's like, they're like, girl, you don't know. But it's like, I feel like people can relate. You're so used to, working and paying bills. Like when one friend, she's a homeowner, I'm like, you have so much to be proud of. Like, don't let that, determine who you are as a person because you're not successful in that area. I think that's important to talk about because you're successful in all these other areas. So there's a reason why you're not, but I'm sure people can relate to that. She's like and she's so, and it's another reason why I wanted her on. She's like so anti-dating apps.
Oh,
and so I'm
that
like,
would be
see,
interesting.
right?
Yeah.
I'm like, you're so opposed to that, and you don't date. You see, like, I feel like there's a correlation. You know what I mean? Like in today's world, especially, like I feel like you have to be open. We kind of came in right at the beginning, and we're open, and it worked out. But like you said, I don't know how it would be if I was still single. I'd probably be so over it. Like if you're seeing
yeah,
the same,
there's definitely moments
where you're just like, okay, like I would definitely take a break. Like, okay, I probably gotta take a break for a minute because the same dudes, they're not about nothing, But I don't know. I wish we could find somebody. I don't know anybody else who's like single without kids, like a professional single.
I do. And
You do?
she's starting to open up to stuff like this, so I'll ask her.
Okay, does she
She's
have kids?
so
She doesn't have
rad
kids?
now.
Oh, okay.
She's like 46,
Ooh.
47. She's gorgeous. She looks she's like 27.
You would come with her if she wants, like,
Yeah. She owns a soccer business for kids in San Diego, and she has a hard time finding people. And she's not. I think she was on Tinder for a second, and she would be perfect. She doesn't have kids. She's very positive.
Ask her.
And she goes Latin dancing with me. She's gorgeous. I don't know what guys are crazy.
I think too, though. I think that what happens is we even see it with like celebrities, like Halle Berry, all that. I think that people get so stuck.
Yeah.
When you meet somebody when you're young, I mean, especially when I met him, I had just started living on my own, literally.
Right.
Like I moved in my own place, like 2 days before I met him. So I wasn't used to just being by myself. But if you get so stuck, like 10 years, more than that, like living by yourself, doing everything, like I could just imagine if I had lived by myself for 10 years and then he came doing the little things that imagine how irritating that would be. But I didn't know what to
control thing that you said too.
Right.
What you expect,
Right.
and then they don't live up to that, and this day and age
Or a
people
lot of-
be like, I'm done. Oh, you do? Oh, you did? I'm done.
right.
Yeah. Or like when they're older too, like maybe they bought a house, or like, oh, I won't live in that part of the country. I won't like. There's more.
Right, and that's also my
limitation.
friend. She lives in DC and she's not open to moving different places.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you have to be open, otherwise, I feel especially as you get older. Not that your standards need to be lower, but you need to be. I feel like more open to more things. You know what I mean? You can't like what you thought you might have wanted when you were 21 needs to change by the time you're 36.
Right.
In my opinion, I don't know. I could be wrong.
And then maybe what she wants versus who she is.
Well, that's another thing.
Yes.
Because, like, for instance,
People
like,
are not realistic.
she's not one to step in the gym, but she wants somebody who's in the gym 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I'm like, girl, but you don't go no days.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like you have to just, I feel like, be really honest with yourself. And like I said, not lower your expectations, but just be realistic within those expectations and feel like, okay, what are things that I have to have, but what can I be more open to?
Totally.
Because, those standard things, you should still want those, but.
Right.
And also know what you're offering. And that's the other thing.
Yes.
Take some time to self-reflect.
I feel like